Today, we're going to be talking about something that you probably use every day. Probably something that you're probably using right now. Something that more than 50% of the school at this very moment is using at the moment. The internet.
Alright, so what exactly is the internet? See, the internet has no one use, but what exactly it is, it's a log of information that's kept in this non-physical space, which almost anyone with a computing device and an internet connection or a connection to this log can access and see almost basically everything that's put onto it. Alright, so let's start with a brief history of the internet. So, in the Cold War, they created a network of computers, so in case one went down, they would still have the others. So from there, they started to test computer connections and a network of those. This network grew using a government network and eventually became, in 1991, the World Wide Web, created by Tim Berners-Lee. This was a virtual database where anyone with an internet connection could connect, and this was accessible from dial-up internet, which allowed you to connect via a telephone line. From here, we have had many major feats with the internet, such as being able to connect wirelessly without a wire, and the usage rate of the internet has jumped from 1% of the world to now almost 40% of the world is able to use the internet. Alright, now let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the internet and how it affects people's life. So, from a communication standpoint, it allows people from across the sides of the world to talk to each other. But at the same time, this can be taken for granted, and people will neglect to actually see people in real life and instead talk with them online. From a knowledge standpoint, it gives people the resources to look up virtually anything known to man with the click of a few buttons. But at the same time, there are a lot of shady websites that might not be proposing the right ideas that could be on the internet, so it could lead you to some false information at the same time. From a social perspective, the internet's great because it creates a lot of jobs, such as people who edit and work on websites, or people who make YouTube videos for a living. But at the same time, a lot of these people, or any person, just the average person, really needs to be careful with what they say on the internet, because something that you say on the internet will stay there forever, no matter how much you can delete it. It'll always be there. In the end, I believe the pros of the internet outweigh the cons, as I believe that it positively affects people more than it negatively does. In the end, the internet gives people the tools to succeed and enhances their lives, such as communication and information. Though, you do have to take the internet with a grain of salt, as you have to make sure you're using it in the right ways. But in the end, I think that the internet is a great resource and it affects people greatly.